If you've ever wondered what booking agencies actually look for when deciding who to book for solo acoustic gigs, then this video is going to give you the clearest answer you've ever heard. My name is Finbar and I'm a full-time gigging musician based in Edinburgh. And a few weeks ago inside my Pro Gig Academy community, we had a live call with a special guest, and that was Craig McMorrow, who is one of the busiest music agents in Edinburgh and Scotland. Also a full-time gigging musician himself for over 20 years and someone who books hundreds of gigs every month. He was incredibly honest, brutally honest at times. And in this video, I'm going to share the top 5 things that he said musicians must get right if they are to get work with an agent. Now, the first thing Craig talked about, and honestly, the thing that he just kept coming back to, it wasn't talent. It wasn't how good a singer you were. It wasn't how many songs you could play. It was professionalism.
Professionalism is everything. It's the thing that I notice instantly. Like within seconds of reading an email or seconds of speaking to someone on the phone, I know instantly whether I'm going to work with them or I'm not. So if you can't be professional in what you do and treat it like it's your profession, then don't bother doing it. If you can't turn up on time, being late and missing gigs is not acceptable.
Now, on this subject, Craig did go on to say that mistakes happen, and provided a musician doesn't let it happen multiple times and is upfront and honest about the mistake, then it's okay. Also, the job of an agent sometimes is to sort problems with bookings and mix-ups. For example, he said that, maybe your car breaks down on the way to a gig. That's not your fault. As long as you communicate with him, then it gives him enough time to potentially sort it, get another musician in. But the problem is when musicians don't communicate. That's really what gives you a bad reputation.
I understand that gigs can be missed due to valid reasons, which is fine. The things happen. We live in a world where shit goes wrong, basically. So, if you crash your car or your mum is sick or whatever, you still have to be professional. You still have to lift the phone and call me and be like, look, I've got a serious problem here. And my answer will always be, go and deal with your business. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. But I can't do that if I'm not told.
Still on the topic of professionalism, he also mentioned musicians chasing payments early.
Chasing up unpaid invoices that are still within terms. It's a dangerous game as well. I get musicians that are hounding me for money and I'm like, well, as you were advised, it's a 30-day invoice, you will be paid. So it's about being aware and just, again, treat it like a business, treat it like it's your job. It's also, it's a little bit of lack of respect too when it comes to that.
And one of the most powerful things he said was this.
As you say, you're not treating it correctly. You're treating it like a hobby. And and okay, if you're a part-time musician, it may be your hobby. But that doesn't mean it's my hobby or Steve's hobby or Dave's hobby. You're belittling what someone else does by acting that way.
So the big takeaway here, talent can definitely get you noticed, but it's professionalism that gets you rebooked. Now, the second piece of advice that Craig had was an interesting one. Somebody asked the question, if you are a beginner, should you approach an agent for gigs? Craig does not recommend going to an agent when you're brand new. He said he would prefer a musician to get some experience before coming to him.
My advice, if I'm perfectly honest, is start yourself. You can go to an agent, no problem. That's not an issue. My personal advice will be get your feet on the ground, get in, speak to people, because that's what builds up your own personality and your own outlook on how you want to portray yourself. Sometimes I feel if it's someone that, if it's a very fresh musician that this is their first time out, I can book them into places and they don't really know what they're going to expect. It doesn't really matter how much information I can give. That's a feeling rather than anything else. So my advice would be get your feet on the ground, get in the doors, get yourself some business cards printed, go in and speak to people, do a couple of open mics. Once you've got a couple of gigs, paid gigs under your belt, then I'd go to an agent. At least then, whatever information that I portray back to you, you have a fair idea of what that means, rather than, kind of walking into the unknown a little bit.
Agents want musicians who are already battle tested even just a little bit. Somebody who's played at least a few paid gigs, knows how to set up, knows what to expect, and knows how to handle a crowd. And by the way, if you are working towards getting out as a solo acoustic performer, I've put together a solo gig confidence checklist, which might be very useful to you. So I've got a few things in there. I've got an email template that you can send to venues to try get your first gigs. There's a list of 30 crowd-pleasing songs that go down well in pub environments. And there's also a guide on crowd interaction tips and simple things you can do to keep a crowd on your side. If you want to grab that guide for free, the link is below this video. All right, point number 3 is a big one, and it is your set list must fit the venue that you want to play at. Now, this was one of the most valuable parts of the call, because the set list is the first thing that an agent will look at when deciding whether to book you. And also worth mentioning, somebody asked Craig what they should send to an agent if they're looking for gigs.
Someone will get in touch with me and then we'll have a little conversation. I tell them to email me over. I will want a short bio. I want a short example of a set list, and I want 3 to 5 videos, live videos, so I can hear the performance. Good quality videos and a good set list is prime when it comes to getting on my books anyway.
But beyond that, he also said something really important. If his venues are high energy, then the set list has to match it. But on the other hand, if you want to play quieter venues, older venues, maybe hotels, things like that, your set list must reflect that instead.
You need to tailor your set list to where you want to play. I think that's an important thing. If you want to play, like someone said, workman clubs, or, if you want to play, let's say, venues where the demographic are, 40 to 60 or 40 to 70, or, you want to play the demographic of 18-year-olds to 35-year-olds or whatever, your set list needs to portray where you want to be and what you want to do. It's not my place to judge a set list. It's my place to tell you what your set list is, and if you know what I mean.
If it's a fit, basically.
And if it's a fit, exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. The take-home message from this section was that agencies do not judge whether your set list is good. They judge whether it's a fit. Okay, on to point number 4, which is something that I get asked about a lot. And it is regarding your showreel or demo reel. Basically, videos that you might put together to send to a pub or an agent to try to get gigs. We asked Craig what should be in one of these reels.
Show reels are the best way to show off. If you can compile a good 5-minute show reel, just like what I said to Finbar about a set list, your show reel should portray, again, what you want to be and what you want to do and where you want to play. If someone sends me a show reel that's all Dylan and Taylor, you know what I mean? Well, I don't know how I can say exactly it. I love James Taylor and Dylan, but it wouldn't be tailored for my venues. Let's put it that way.
But the key here again is that your show reel should match the kind of gigs that you want. Now, the ironic thing about Craig joking about Dylan and Taylor is that that's actually his favorite kind of music. I've been friends with Craig for years, and that is his jam. That's what he listens to in his spare time, and that's the kind of stuff he enjoys to play. But it's just not typically the kind of material that gets you hired at a lot of his venues. And even though Craig himself is a songwriter, he writes, records his own music, he's always in the studio, he still plays cover songs at pub gigs because that's simply what works in that environment. And here's something else that I think a lot of musicians need to hear.
I'll be honest, you can get people to send you extremely professional show reels. I personally would rather something live. I personally would prefer as good audio as you can get from a live performance. Without certain equipment, it can be hard. But from my perspective, I would prefer slightly worse audio and it being real and honest work than someone that's just gone into a studio and auto-tune their voice to sound great.
So if you've been putting off recording a video or sending it to an agent or a pub because you think it's not good enough, chances are it probably is. Agents want to see something real rather than perfect. All right, point number 5, probably the most important one in this video. Craig was asked about common mistakes that he sees musicians making. This is what he said.
The biggest mistake musicians make is thinking that they're better than they are. So common. And it's always someone who is very good. They're always the biggest problem because they feel they know better. Just because you have musical talent doesn't necessarily mean that that translates to this world. The world of gigging is a different beast. You know, if you want to go and play all your jazz standards or you're a big metalhead and you want to play metal or whatever it may be, there is a place for that. It's just not in a pub on a Saturday night. The most conversations I've had to have, I'll send them a video of someone I think is really good as a pub entertainer. And it'd be like, that's what's very good in this scenario. Mm-hmm. And what you do isn't.
And this line sums it up perfectly.
Thinking that your musical talent will get you through isn't always the case.
Being a great and talented musician does not automatically make you a great gigging musician. There is a difference. Agents look for the right person for the right type of venue, and that's not always the best technical player. The take home here is quite simple. Be professional when reaching out to an agent or a pub or a bar or hotel for that matter. Be professional when you perform gigs, when you communicate with the venues, because this is what gets you rebooked. Hope you found this video helpful, and don't forget, if you want to grab that solo gig confidence checklist, grab it below this video for free, and I'll see you in the next one.